Hello, welcome to Math with Mr. Dobrescu to the rescue. We have learned how to solve systems of linear equations by graphing, and we practiced. Today we are going to learn how to solve systems of linear equations by the substitution method. Let's take a look at some of the steps we have when we solve systems of linear equations by the substitution method. Step number one, we need to solve either one of the equations for x or y and box everything that comes after the equal sign. So we are looking at the equation here, at the system of linear equations, and we need to solve either for x or for y in either one of those two equations. So if you take a look at this system of linear equations, we see that the first equation is already solved for y because y is by itself. Y equals 2x minus 4. And now what we have to do, we need to box everything that comes after the equal sign. Then step number 2 is telling us to substitute this box into the same variable but in the second equation. Okay? Think about this as this y in the second equation as Mr. Dobrescu, your teacher, Mr. Dobrescu. So Mr. Dobrescu, for example, is sick today. This y is Mr. Dobrescu, Mr. D. Mr. D. Mr. D is sick today. So because Mr. D is sick today, another teacher, the substitute teacher, which is, for example, let's call this Mr. Bill. Mr. Bill is going to replace Mr. Dobrescu because Mr. Dobrescu still is sick today. So Mr. Bill is going to replace Mr. Dobrescu. So Mr. Bill is this box. See the y, we box everything after the y, and this box is going to replace Mr. Dobrescu. Okay? So now if we replace the box, this y with the box, then we will be able to solve for the x. Let's see what's happening. So we have 7x minus 2. Instead of y, we are going to put the box. 2x minus 4 equals 5. You see, we don't have any more y. We just have the x. So now we can solve for that variable for x and get the answer. Okay, so let's solve for x now. We are going to use the distributive property here. So we have 7x, negative times a positive becomes negative 4x, negative times a negative becomes positive, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 8 equals 5. Okay, we are solving it. We got rid of the parentheses. We use the distributive property. Now we are going to combine the like terms. We see that 7x and negative 4x are like terms, and we can combine them together. 7x minus 4x becomes 3x plus 8 equals 5. Now we have two-step equation. And remember, for the two-step equations, 8 has to go home first because 8 does not have a pair. So we have to subtract 8 on both sides. This will cancel. 8 and negative 8 becomes a 0. So we have 3x left over equals. And then we have 5 and negative 8. Remember, opposite sign subtract. Let's subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. Take the sign of the larger number. Then will be exact. Negative 3, right? We took the sign of negative 8 and we get negative 3. And finally, we need to divide both sides by 3 in order for us to get the x by itself. 1x, right? So we get 1x or just x equals negative divided by positive becomes a negative, and 3 divided by 3 becomes a 1. Negative 1. So our x class is negative 1. We got x. X is negative 1. We got half of the answer, the solution. Now we need to find the y. We got the x is negative 1. In order for us to find the y, now let's take a look at step number 3. Substitute the value from step 2, this value. Substitute the value from step 2 into one of the original equations. Usually we pick the equation that has less numbers or the smaller equation. And I'm going to substitute this negative 1 into the top equation for x because this is smaller compared to the second equation. Okay? And now let's solve for y. So now we have y equals 2 times, instead of x, we are substituting negative 1 minus 4. And let's see what we have. Okay? So we have y equals 2 times negative 1 becomes negative 2. Negative 2 minus 4. So finally we get y equals negative 2 combined with negative 4 becomes negative 6. So y is negative 6. So we got the x and we got the y. Now we can say we can have final answer negative 1, negative 6. This is our y. This is our final answer. And let's check to see if we got the right answer, right? So instead of x, we are going to replace negative 1 in the first equation. And instead of y, we are going to replace negative 6. So now we have, instead of y, negative 6 equals 2 times negative 1 becomes negative 2. And negative 2 combined with negative 4 becomes negative 6. So we are getting a true statement. Okay? And you can do the same thing for the second equation, and you're always going to get a true statement. So our final answer again is negative 1 and negative 6. Okay? Take a look for another minute or so. Make sure you write all these steps down in your notebook, and then step by step solve the system of equations by the substitution method. Okay? Let's take a look at another example now. Example 2. In example 2, we have y equals 2x plus 3. And the second equation, we have y equals 5x. Now the difference between example 1 and example 2. In example 2, we see both of the equation, they both have the y by itself. And the question is, which one you want to box? Do you want to box the top equation and then replace that into the bottom? Or do you want to box the bottom and replace that into the top? Either one. You have a choice here. So choose either one. Okay? I'm choosing the bottom one. I'm choosing to box this y into this y on the top, into here. Okay? And now instead of y, instead of Mr. Dobrescu, Mr. Bill is going to take his place again. So instead of y, we are going to put 5x equals 2x plus 3. You see, we got rid of the y by doing that. And now we can solve for x. We have variables on both sides, so we need to bring all the variables to one side of the equation. So we need to subtract 2x on both sides. Okay? 2x minus 2x cancel out. So now we have 5x minus 2x becomes 3x equals 3. And finally, we have to divide both sides by 3 in order for us to solve for x. 3 divided by 3 becomes 1x. So we get x equals, and 3 divided by 3 becomes 1. So x equals 1. We got the x in our answer. So x equals 1. The solution, x equals 1. That's our x. Now we need to find our y. Who remembers what we do next? What do we do to find the y? If you check your steps again from the previous example, we are going to substitute the value for x into one of the equations, the original equation, either one. you will get the same answer. Usually I pick the equation that has less terms and the numbers are smaller. So I'm going to substitute this x into this x over here because this equation seems simpler. And then let's solve for y. So we have y now. Y equals 5 times, instead of x, we are going to substitute 1. 5 times 1. And 5 times 1, everyone knows, is 5. Y equals 5. So now we got the value of y, and we have the value of x, and we can find the other, or the pair, the other number. X is 1, and y is 5. So our final answer is 1, 5. And let's check. Let's check into this equation. Instead of y, we can put 5. 5 equals 5 times. Instead of x, we put 1. 5 times 1 is 5. We get the true statement. And if we go to the top, instead of y, we put 5. So we had 5 equals 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 equals 5. True statement. Okay? Not very difficult. This is called the substitution method. Okay? I love substitution because I love to have Mr. Bill to cover for me sometimes when I'm sick, right? We got to get the substitute teacher to cover for us. Let's take a look at another example here. Example 3. In example 3, we have 4x plus 2y equals 0. And the second equation, we have y equals 1 over 2x minus 5. Which of these equations has either the x or the y by itself? And we see that the second equation has the y by itself. So let's box everything that comes after the equal sign, and we are going to box it into the y at the top in order for us to solve for x. And let me do the work right here. So we have 4x plus 2. Instead of y, we put 1 over 2x. 1 over 2x. We have a fraction, but that's okay. Minus 5. And 1 over 2x minus 5. Okay. And then equals 0. Okay. And now we need to solve for x. In order for us to solve for x, we need to use the distributive property. So let's distribute 2 over 1 over 2x and 2 over negative 5. So we have 4x, positive times the positive, still positive, plus 2 times 1 over 2x. Now let's look at the second arrow. 2 times negative 5 becomes negative 10, right? Equals 0. And we can put a 1 under these 2. So now we see that 2 and 2 cross cancel, simplifies. And everything here becomes 1x. So we get 4x plus 1x. Everything becomes a 1 here. So plus 1x minus 10 equals 0. And now we need to combine the like terms. We see that 4x and 1x are like terms. So let's combine 4x plus 1x. And that becomes 5x. So we have 5x minus 10 equals 0. And now we have to add 10 on both sides because we need to solve for x. Whatever I do to one side, we do to the other side, right? 10 and negative 10 cancel out. So we have 5x equals 10 plus 0, 10. The final step would be to divide both sides by 5. Let's divide 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5 becomes 1x equals 10 divided by 5 is 2. So x equals 2. We got an x. We got half of the answer. We got an x, class. So we got x. X equals 2. X equals 2. Now let's find the y. Remember, once we find the x, our goal is to replace that value, the x, into one of the original equation that has less numbers or is less complicated. I don't usually like fractions, so usually I like to replace it into the top one because the top equation does not have a fraction. So let's replace the 2 into the x at the top, right? Because x equals 2, right? 2 for the x. And then we are going to solve for y. So we have 4 times, instead of x, we replace 2, 4 times 2, plus 2y equals 0. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2y equals 0. Now we need to solve for y, two-step equations. First we need to subtract 8 on both sides. We need to bring that 8 on the other side. So let's subtract 8 on both sides. 8 minus 8 cross cancels. So we have 2y equals negative 8 plus 0 becomes negative 8, right? And finally, last step, we divide both sides by 2. So we can get the y. 2 divided by 2 becomes 1y. So y equals, and negative 8 divided by 2, negative divided by positive becomes negative, and 8 divided by 2 becomes 4. So y equals negative 4. So we got the y, negative 4. Let me use the same color. So y is negative 4. Final answer, okay? And I want to have you check to see if we get a true statement. I trust we get a true statement, but because of the time, and I have another example to explain, I'm going to have you check, take about a minute or two, check the value of x and y into the original equations and see if we get a true statement. Okay, let's take a look at our final example. And in this example, we have x equals 5y plus 3. And the second equation, we have 2x plus 4y equals negative 1. Now, what do we see different in this example? In this example, we see that the x is by itself. Doesn't matter. No, it doesn't, right? Remember our steps? Get either y or x by itself and then box everything afterwards. So because we have the x already by itself, let's box everything that comes after the x. Okay? And now Mr. Dobrescu is x instead of being y. Okay? Mr. Dobrescu is x in this case. So Mr. Bill is going to replace Mr. Dobrescu but for x now because Mr. Dobrescu is x, not the y. Okay? And let's see what's going to happen. So we have 2 times, instead of x, we put 5y plus 3, 5y plus 3, plus 4y equals negative 1. Okay, and now let's solve for y. Again, it's a little bit complicated equation, but that's okay because we are experts in using the distributive property. So we are going to distribute the 2 over 5y and distribute the 2 over 3. And let's see what's going to happen. 2 times 5 becomes 10y. 2 times 3, 6. Plus 6. Plus 4y equals negative 1. Now again, after the distributive property, we got to combine the like terms. Let's see if we have any like terms on the same sign of the equal sign. So we see that 10y and 4y are like terms. So we must combine those terms together. 10y plus 4y becomes 14y plus 6 equals negative 1. Now we have a two-step equation. So now in this case, we are going to subtract 6 on both sides. Let's subtract 6 on both sides. 6 minus 6 cancel out. So we are left over with 14y. So we have 14y equals -1 and -6. Same signs add. Remember that saying. So add the numbers. 6 plus 1 is 7. And keep the sign. -7. And finally, we need to divide both sides by 14. Okay? So let's divide 14 on both sides. 14 divided by 14 becomes the 1y. So we get y equals -7 over 14. -7 over 14. But we can simplify that. We can divide top and bottom by 7. Let's divide 7 top and bottom. -7 divided by 7 becomes -1. And 14 divided by 7 becomes 2. So y equals -1/2. Y equals -1 over 2. We find out that in this case, y is a fraction, but that's okay. Okay? It's okay to have a fraction in the answer. So now we got the y. Y is -1 over 2. Now we got to find the x. So in order for us to find the x, we need to substitute now the value of y, which is -1 over 2, into one of the equations for us to find the x. Okay? So I can use either one of these equations, right? But I'm going to choose the bottom equation. So we have, instead of y, I can put -1 over 2. Okay, instead of y, we can put -1 over 2, and then we can solve for x. So let's see what's going to happen. So we have 2x plus 4 times, instead of y, we have -1 over 2, right? So -1 over 2 equals -1. Okay, and let's solve it, right? We can put here 4 over 1. We can do that because 1 doesn't change the value of 4. But now we see that 4 and 2 simplifies out. 4 divided by 2 becomes 2. So we get 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom now. Now we don't have any fractions anymore. We don't like fractions, right? Now we got rid of the fractions. So now we have 2x. Positive times a negative becomes a negative. 2 times 1, just 2. So -2 equals -1. And now let's solve this equation. We have a two-step equation to solve. So we need to add 2 on both sides. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. Plus 2. 2 minus 2 simplifies out. So we are left over with 2x equals 2 minus 1 is 1. And now, in order for us to find the x, we got to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 becomes a 1x. So x equals 1/2. X equals 1/2. Very, very interesting in this problem because y was -1 over 2 and x now is 1/2, positive 1/2. So x is 1/2. X is 1 over 2. And now we are done. That's our x and that's our y. That's our solutions. X is 1 over 2 and y is -1 over 2. Thank you all so much for watching and for practicing with me how to solve systems of linear equations by the substitution method. Okay? Thank you all so much for your time again, and I wish you all the best in your mathematical adventure. And please, don't forget to like and subscribe. We need more subscriptions, and we need more students like you to watch these videos so they can get better at solving systems of equations by the substitution method. Thank you. All the best.